guarantee me 10 shots per year at $50 per shot. So basically it's a $500 contract that I'm giving you all these rights for. And yeah, some guys went through there and made a lot of money and others didn't.
In the same meeting, Vince talked about WCW Nitro going head-to-head with Raw, very anti-WCW, of course, but I'm fairly sure that the smart guys in the crowd there weren't rooting for WCW to fail, because why would you root for alternative employment, essentially? Routes to alternative employment to fail. Having said that, Vince also addresses Lex Luger, basically saying we'll see him in court, because, as we all know the story, it's very famous. Lex Luger was out of contract, and obviously there was no legal thing that Vince could do. Lex was out of contract. He'd given his notice proper time, and he was working on a per-day deal, essentially, and then, secretly, he goes over to WCW, signs quite a low contract, actually, because Eric Bischoff was leery about using him in the first place because of attitude problems and stuff that he'd heard about him, and etc. But what were your feelings when you first saw Lex Luger, or heard Lex Luger had jumped ship, and also wearing that hideous white shirt with no collar on it? It's like, why would anyone wear that in pub? Anyway, that's a bugbear of mine. I really hate collarless shirts. But yeah, the Lex Luger jump, and how shocked you all were when that happened.
At the time, as you mentioned, it pops back in my head. At the time, we in the dressing room weren't privy to where his contract was or wasn't. At least some of us got the understanding that when you hear something, doesn't necessarily make it true, right? So, there was the scuttlebutt. Some said his contract was up. Okay, well, I don't know that. I'm not his lawyer, and I don't have it in front of me. And so there was a bit of, to correct one thing you said about the desire for the guys in the dressing room to the other companies. I don't think anybody desired to put anybody out of business from the wrestler's point of view, because again, these are potential workplaces. But there was always an intention, regardless of who I was working for, to best them, to top them, to be better than them. And I guess a little pride thing that goes into that, whether it's company A, B, or C. But I remember the scuttlebutt being the biggest talk in the dressing room, scuttlebutt among the boys was, I wonder if his contract really was up. And then somebody would allege, well, I know it's up because, okay, well, again, I don't know if he signed an extension. I don't know if there's some clause in there that extends it for some period. It just was one of those things that you took note of, because for us, being able to go back and forth was lucrative. If company A has you and B and C want you, you can, if you have an opening, it's easy to do, and it can be fairly good for you and your family. And but my overarching thing of it was that most of us were just curious as to where it stood, and then watching it, okay, where's this going to go? The threats of lawsuits and stuff, as I recall, didn't materialize, and he just sort of stayed in WCW. Mm-hmm. But I would never begrudge anybody. Each one of these guys, and I guess I'm biased, but I have been really amazed at what good businessmen so many people in this business are, because you have to be, if you're going to survive in it. And when you're watching somebody make a move like that, okay, you're taking note, right? Because if I ever have to do this, I want to see what did he do, what didn't he do, if anything proper or improper, legal or illegal. And same thing when within a few weeks span, Brian Pillman had showed up in ECW, WCW, and WWF. Mm-hmm. And there were a few of those guys that were sort of rude, and those guys that were floating in between. And without knowing, you had to know that, well, this guy's got an attorney with a lunk brain. If he's telling him, hey, you're under contract at ECW, but you're going to go ahead and pop up over here or there. So all these things were happening sort of in that same time frame. You'd see Pillman come and zip, zip, zip. And then some short period later or before, Rude would do the trajectory, and just all of it, you're taking note of it and filing it just in case you'd have to use that down the road. But the contracts in the bigger companies until WCW were pretty predatory. My contract with WWF, which I still have and can prove, was that they were guaranteeing me, this is my contract, was that they would guarantee me 10 shots per year at $50 per shot. So basically it's a $500 contract that I'm giving you all these rights for. And yeah, some guys went through there and made a lot of money and others didn't. You know, and really, I think to the, if not illegal, boys, like skirting right along that line, you know, it's, you know, the idea that I could film you, take footage of you doing what you're best at and putting it out there and making a lot of money with it and going, well, wait, you want money for that? I mean, I made you famous. Well, yeah, but you only kept me on because I was good enough to be on with you. So there's obviously a give and take. And again, like that's going to be one of those things that for time immemorial, we'll be able to argue. Somebody thinks it should be all of it. Somebody thinks none of it, and everybody else in between somewhere. But there's got to be a point to where it is or it isn't. It's either valid or it's not valid. And, you know, that's more for the Diana Myers of the world.